Okay, so we will call Committee of the Whole to order. Sorry, I'm just pulling up the agenda. So of course, our main item tonight is discussing the Ward 2 vacancy. Pulling up to see for minutes. So first, I will move to approve the minutes of the July 2022 Committee of the Whole.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And that motion passes. Okay, so the main thing we're talking about tonight, Resolution 2024-48, a resolution to appoint to the Ward 2 seat. And the idea tonight is we ended up with 17 applicants for this seat, which is pretty impressive given the last 2 ward appointments we had single digits. I think it was maybe like 3 and 7 respectively. So 17 for Ward 2 is a lot. So the idea is tonight is to look at potentially narrowing down that list. Because of the timeline, Council, of course, only has 60 days to appoint because of the timing of former Councilman Schachner's resignation on August 5th, that we are on a ticking timeline here with between giving folks time to get their applications in, having recess, having, for some of us, a week-long power outage and internet outage. So we're a little bit up against the wire here. So in the interest of time, the actual deadline would be 60 days from the 5th, August 5th, or yes, August 5th. October 5th. So 3rd, yeah, so we would have October 3rd, so we would have the next, so our next full council meeting is September 3rd, the day after Labor Day, which is a Tuesday, and then the following full council meeting is the 16th. So that essentially gives us this upcoming Committee of the Whole on September 3rd. We also have a Committee of the Whole schedule on the 9th to continue interviews, and then with the anticipation of appointing someone officially on the 16th, and they would be sworn in. And that's also somewhat urgent in terms of until we have that person, we don't know what strengths they would bring in order to reassign committees and who is on which committee also. So we don't want to hold up our work also with that. So that is kind of why I asked you all to cut your recess short and come in tonight. So thank you very much for doing that so that we could stay on track to get this appointment done by our meeting on the 16th. So with that, talking a little bit process-wise, so the charter, of course, lays out that council appoints in the event of a vacancy because, as you all know, but just reiterating, because this vacancy, because the amount of time left on the vacancy, the person appointed to this vacancy would serve until the next municipal election. So they will be, this position would be up with when the at-large run again next year. And then that person would be, or whoever is the successful candidate in that election would then serve a 2-year term. So it's a little bit different than some of the ones we've done before. And then also, you know, in terms of process, again, because we could, in theory, you know, I could come out here and just say, I want to appoint Joe Schmo, and you could all say, okay, fine, and then that's that, right? But historically, since I've been on council, and I think before that, we've had a history of seeking applications from the public, bringing those in, you know, potentially narrowing that down, like what happened when I applied for the at-large appointment. I think there were over 20-some applicants for that, and that was narrowed down. So, and then this is a little different than a normal job interview also, right? So a normal job interview might take place over several months. Likewise, if you were running for this seat, you would, you know, a person normally applying or wanting to be the Ward 2 council member would get petitions with 50 members of the public or registered voters from that ward signing in support of them. submitting those, there'd be several, if there were 17 applicants, we would have a primary, because we always have a primary if there's more than 2 applicants for the seat. And then, and voters and journalists and fellow candidates would have months to sort of voir dire and look through those applicants, dig up anything in their history, find out their credentials, all that. We have 2 weeks. So with that said, we asked candidates to submit their resume and a cover letter. So that was step 1. I pulled up in several years ago some council members, including our council member Bullock, who wasn't able to be here today, as well as former Councilwoman Monique Smith and former Councilmember Kevin Butler created this survey, then sent it out. And so I took some of those questions and then added some of my own that I thought were particularly important to Ward 2 residents to represent them, and sent that out to candidates. That was a voluntary survey that they could complete or not complete, and that's just some additional information to take into account. If you would like to, you can. You do not have to. And with all of that said, in terms of process tonight, we have a couple different options. So if I assume everybody has had a chance to review the applications, the information, as much or as little of that information as you want, any other information that you wanted to seek out on your own. So one way we could do it, I also created a ranked choice voting tool. As you know, we have our charter review committee suggested that we consider ranked choice voting in the future for our municipal elections. So I thought this was a good opportunity for us to potentially take that for a test drive, as well as potentially narrow down the field. And with ranked choice voting, of course, you know, we might all agree, we might not all agree on a first choice, but we're looking at our second or third or fourth choice. It's better to get your fourth choice than your 17th choice, right? So that's kind of the idea of that, and it would auto-calculate that for us. So we could have some discussion on the floor now. We could go into executive session and have some discussion. And then we could jump right in, use the ranked choice vote tool. So we have a couple different options. And then we can also discuss how far we want to narrow down. So one possibility there is if we use the ranked choice vote tool, it would generate out how many people achieve the minimum threshold to win. And then we could take that number, take those people out, run it again if we want more candidates, or we could say, yeah, that's fine, we'll use those candidates. So that's a lot of options to throw at you. I'll open it up. Councilman Rader.
Thank you, Council President, and I really appreciate you. It's a lot of work to put this together, and hot off vacation too. You had to come and kind of throw this together. And thank you to everyone, some are here today, and everyone who's watching who put their name on the line. It's a lot to do that, and you know, putting yourself out there's a lot when you're running, even when you're applying. As some folks who'd gone through that process, no, it takes guts. I really appreciate it, and we're gonna do our best here. I guess one question with like the good way to start. I'm glad we're starting here. Like, how do we narrow this down? How many candidates are we going to interview? So maybe just let's start. I would like to think about starting with like, what would it look like to interview all of them, and why wouldn't we do that? We could give them each 5 minutes to talk, 5 minutes of questioning. Gets us to about 3 hours of total time if they all choose to. There may be some that don't choose to, so it might take less time. Just want to throw that out there. What are some pros and cons to like trying to get as many of these folks in the room as possible? It would also eliminate any like decisions on our part early on to have to narrow folks down, which I know is very difficult. There's a lot of really qualified folks here. And give them all a few minutes to talk, I think, would be advantageous. There may be some drawbacks to that, in that we won't go as deep with them, and possibly appointing somebody we have only had a 5-minute conversation with is certainly a drawback. But I wanted to throw that out there as a starting point.
Thoughts from other council members? Councilmember Streebing.
Thank you. I'd also like to thank you for your hard work on this. This is very impressive, as well as our clerks of council, Maureen and Danielle. This is fantastic. Thank you for all this hard work and accumulating all this information for all these fantastic candidates. I don't know, Councilman Rader, that 5 minutes would be enough time for me personally. I would, because I want to ask more questions about their experiences and how that translates how that translates to the requirements for this position. So I would think at a minimum, a half an hour per candidate, preferably an hour with six people asking questions. So I think that I'd just like to add that to the conversation.
Other colleagues, Councilwoman Marks.
Well, I personally feel that with people, stepping up to apply for the positions, I do feel that they all deserve an interview, however long it might be. But I think that I would not want to eliminate somebody from having an opportunity to talk one-on-one to us and have us ask questions that we might feel is pertinent. And if people are, stepping out because they want to serve, I think they deserve to be talked to personally. And I know that would really require a lot of time, but this is a very important appointment for this ward, considering that all the construction that's going to be going on. I think it's very important that we have an opportunity to talk to people. That's my opinion. And I don't mind spending the extra time.
Councilman Baker, any thoughts?
Yeah, and I see both. I guess we're all thinking, thank you for the effort. It was a lot of effort, and we appreciate it. And council staff, and even the way it's organized is very helpful in the sense where we have letters of support, resumes, and kind of charts and stuff. Folks have already reached out to individual council members, so there has been a little bit of an opportunity over the past, over recess and in July. In Schechner, former Councilman Schechner resigned technically on the 5th, but it was noticed before that. So this has been a little more breathing room with this process. And I don't think 5 minutes is enough. I don't think 10 minutes is enough. I don't know that I need a half hour, but so maybe 20 minutes or something like that could suffice. So I think perhaps some narrowing would be appropriate. In my mind, it's how much, right? Is it 12? Is it 8? Is it 15? What's the narrowing? Simply because I think, just like this is not a job interview, but in the traditional sense of you're trying to work for some company or government agency, but what does happen there is some winnowing of applicants to a point where you get down to the folks that, and not to say that experience and resume is everything, but it does at least tell a story about your background. And then the cover letter gives a little bit of the flavor, and I know when I applied both times, put a lot of effort into the cover letter to make sure it expressed what I was looking to accomplish out of council, what I thought I could bring to council. So I think that some narrowing is appropriate, although, if we need to spend the time, I'll put the time in. So if the colleagues want to interview everyone, then I'd certainly do that. But I do think that just in a matter of efficiency and trying to be as judicious as possible, there probably are a group of people that just upon cover letter and resume perhaps set themselves apart.
Thank you. I think one of the goals is to be as, I think, open and democratic as possible. Always, it's certainly something to strive for. No one's ever happy with an appointment process because we all would prefer that the voters decide, right? So that's always an awkward part of this. In this case, it is slightly less awkward for a couple of us because we do live in Ward 2, so I am a Ward 2 voter as well. But it's still, we're making a decision on the voters' behalf, so it is a serious matter, and something to be taken seriously. And I guess, so there's a couple things there, and so I appreciate everyone's comments. I'd love to interview everyone in an ideal world. We are, as I mentioned at the top, we have a limited window of time. And as you'll recall, at the beginning of this year, when we did our spoons exercise in our committee of the whole, and where we talked about how we only have so many spoons of energy in a day and how we spend them. So I would just urge council to think about what are we not doing for our constituents? what are the clerks not going to be able to do to support us while they're scheduling 17 initial interviews and potentially follow-up interviews, scheduling additional meetings and trying to get all of our calendars together. It wasn't easy to get us together tonight because that's probably not going to be able to do 17 significant interviews and potentially follow-up interviews in 2 weeks without having additional meetings beyond those 2 Mondays, and we need to do this by the 16th. So it's really, in my head, this is a matter of practicality and where is our energy most efficiently spent in best service to our community. And so while I appreciate certainly wanting to speak with all of these applicants, because I really do appreciate them all applying and went to great lengths to promote this opportunity in multiple newspapers, on social media, and our community conversations. So I really did want to spread a wide net, encourage people to get involved. But this isn't the only way to get involved either. And I think we all have the opportunity to reach out to these candidates as we've looked at their cover letters and resumes. We can have conversations with them. Many of them have reached out to us directly to talk with us, and we can be identifying other ways to get them involved in advisory groups and committees and task forces so that next time around we would, have some more understanding of their abilities. So that's kind of my thought process on this is, we have 2 council staff right now instead of 3. They have a lot to do, and we have a limited amount of time. We're all, so just considering the amount of spoons, that's why I'm suggesting that we kind of narrow this down so that I think, rather have potentially a little bit longer, more focused interviews with our top candidates rather than the 5-minute fast fire. Something to think about for the future, though, if, should we have another appointment in the near future, we might consider, and we'll have some advance notice on that and we won't be on recess. We could maybe, have some sort of format like that. But I am also recalling this most recent school board election where there were, 9 candidates, and that candidate night forum, which is wonderfully done by the League of Women Voters, but I'm sure Councilwoman Striegelberg is very involved with that. It was very challenging as a voter sitting in the audience, and it was like, to get them enough questions. It's like, but I want to hear more questions from them, but there were 9 of them to get across. Yeah, Councilwoman Striegelberg.
And to that point, hearing from some of those candidates afterwards that were thought that even if they wouldn't have been on that interview process, that to have more time to actually comment and then hear the input and then comment again on what they had said, as opposed to just one quick answer and you're done. I think it was diminishing for that event.
So that's my thought process and that was part of why I sent out the questionnaire too, was to try to give us another opportunity for folks if they hadn't on their cover letter indicated some of their community involvement or other things that they could bring to the table. There was another opportunity to do that, as well, of course, reaching out to us. So with that, does everyone feel comfortable? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, good. Then so if it's not 17, I think that's the next question, right?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple ways you could come at that. I mean, one option would be to go sort of in half, which would be between 6 and 8 maybe. But I don't know that we necessarily need to have a definitive number. If we, again, we don't have to use the ranked choice voting tool. We can all go around and say some of our favorites. we can. But if we were to do that and we look at that list and then say, okay, what, let's go two more deep, we can. But if we think that that's a good pool, we could also do that. So I would say if we do 6 to 8, that would give us. We would have time on the 3rd and the 9th to do some more in-depth interviews like we were just talking about.
How much time do we have on the
And the
The third and
third, we'd have 2 hours if we start at 5:30, which can also sometimes be challenging to get everybody here actually ready to start at 5:30. So that would take it down. Hence part of the narrowing here. This is this is just a time management situation.
No more than 10, I would say.
Yeah.
If you want to do 20-minute-ish interviews, half an hour, 20 minutes. There's another option, Madam Chair, I guess, and I hate bringing this up because I'm not going to be here because I'll be on a staff retreat for my day job, but the 30th is a Monday. There's a possibility of doing a special meeting if you had to, but I know it's hard to sort of work those in sometimes, but.
Yeah, and that's also, again, scheduling a special meeting, and that's that many more weeks where we don't know who can be on which committee, puts off, having Ward 2 have their own representative. So I'm just kind of anxious to get this done by the 16th for those reasons. Okay, so next question, do you want to do some deliberation in executive session? Do we feel like folks are ready to vote if I throw out a number of candidates we're targeting? Councilman Marks.
I think going into executive session would be appropriate.
Okay. Great. Any other, well, I guess I'll just make a motion and then you can vote on it. How about that? So, I will, so pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G, I will move to enter executive session for the purpose of considering the appointment of a public official and include in that motion council staff and our law department staff.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? We need to do a roll call, Maureen. Okay, I can do it. Baker?
yes.
Marks? Rader?
Yes.
Strebig?
Yes.
Capel, yes. All right, we're going to head into executive session. Any vote taken, we'll come back out before any vote would be taken. All right, I will move to exit executive session.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. I think we need a roll call. Baker,
Yes.
Marks, Rader,
Yes.
Strebig,
Yes.
and Keppels, yes. Okay, so we had some great discussion. And we talked, we found a couple of common areas of interest that we looked at, including we looked at community engagement, how much people had been involved in the community, obviously professional qualifications, in the materials submitted, including the cover letter, resume, voluntary survey, questionnaire. We also looked at voting frequency, how much people had voted in municipal elections, council meeting attendance, and am I forgetting anything anybody wants to bring up? And we were actually, I'm going to say without objection, I'm going to ask the clerks to schedule interviews with the following folks, which would be Robert Erdley, Brian Evans, Brian Higgins, Amanda Morrison, Kyle Robinson, Angelina Steiner, and Allison Welsh. So hearing no objection, we'll ask the clerks to get those scheduled for our September 3rd and 9th upcoming meetings. And thinking maybe 25-minute interviews, that gives us potentially kind of a 5-minute wiggle room between each one, break. And we'll get those scheduled, and then we'll have some discussion on the 9th and be prepared to make a motion to fill in that resolution so that we can get our new colleague appointed on the 16th. All right. Any further discussion? All right, no further business to come before committee. We are adjourned.